Hello, my name is Kat, and this is the first episode of a new writing vlog series. That's right, I am starting a new book. Well, kind of. New-ish? The idea isn't new, but I only ever outlined it and wrote like a really messy zero draft of the first chapter. You should know, you were there. Maybe? Were you? A couple years ago, back in 2018, Sorry, what? It was 6 years ago? 6 years ago? Allegedly, I came up with this idea about a haunted tattoo that I offered as a writing prompt. So I never intended to actually write this story. I gave it away. It was free real estate. Because I'm the type of writer who has an abundance of story ideas. And I love to throw a quick outline together. Like, give me a premise and I will outline a book in an hour. Let's go. Let's do it. I actually did that once in a live stream, like 11 years ago. The Warlock Gladiator book. Like 5 people know what I'm talking about. Anyways, haunted tattoo book. This was an idea that I liked, but I didn't love. Like, it wasn't precious to me. It was so far down the priority list, like realistically, I was never going to write it in my lifetime. I had too many projects that I cared about a lot more and was like way more interested in writing. But everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. No, here's the deal. I have made a lot of videos about writing, from general advice to vlogs about my own writing journey and process. And in almost all of those videos, I've kept things pretty vague and like spoiler free when talking about my own projects. You know, I might mention like the genre and some key tropes, basic premise, general vibes, but like no details, because I didn't want to spoil anything or give anything away. But what if I did? Some of my favorite videos that I've ever made are the brainstorming, outlining, and zero draft videos for this haunted tattoo book. Because I love sharing that behind the scenes look at story creation. Like breaking down my writing process and how I make the storytelling decisions that I make. I find that kind of thing so fascinating. So like, what if I did a whole series of videos of that? What if I take this project that you already know the whole outline for? It's designed to be like an example project, so I don't need to worry about spoilers, and I can show you how I actually construct a story, how I build a book. So I can make videos going into depth about things like character creation and weaving subplots together and world building, themes, tone, point of view, plot twists, tropes, all the things, all the story things. What if I made a bunch of videos talking about all these writing craft elements while actually developing the story alongside that as an example and just sharing the entire process? I just think it's gonna be a really fun and interesting project. I love behind the scenes stuff like this. And documenting the entire life of this story from random idea 6 years ago to a hopefully finished book. And even if I don't get there, even if I never finish this book, because let's be real, that could happen. It's entirely possible. The story could fall apart along the way for any number of reasons. But even if I never finish this project, I still think that the videos I make along the way will be useful and interesting regardless. Sometimes failure is a part of the process, but you know it'll be way better if we're documenting a success story rather than a flop. But only time will tell. So welcome to Build a Book Episode 1. I'm gonna consider those first 3 videos kind of a prologue to this series, so you can watch them if you haven't. That is like the actual origin story of this story. But the first thing we're gonna do in this video is re-outline the book. My hard drive crashed a couple years ago now, and I lost the Scrivener document with the zero draft of the story. But because I only ever worked on the story 4 videos, I didn't really lose anything. You know, it's a bit bothersome that I have to recreate the file, but it's fine. We can rebuild it. We have the technology. We're also changing some stuff up anyways. I haven't actively worked on this story over like the last half decade, but passively I have spent quite a bit of time thinking about the story. You know, further brainstorming and sporadically making decisions about how I want the story to go. Like in my head, I have all sorts of world building info and character backstory info. I have a bunch of lore about like how exactly the haunted tattoo thing works. You know, I have all sorts of stuff like that figured out in my head. It's all been brewing for the last 6 years, and the time has finally come for me to actually write this shit down. So let's do that. Let's re-outline this book and start getting all these ideas down on the page. It's an important part of the writing process, you know, actually writing things down. Who knew? All right, let's get to outlining. So I almost always use my 3-act, 9-block, 27-chapter outline as a starting point. I'll link a couple videos in the description for a more detailed explanation of that if you want more info on what all these beats are. If you're familiar with my outline method, then you may notice that I've used some different terms for some of these points. Chapter 3 used to be called immediate reaction, and has been changed to fallout, and chapter 4 used to be called reaction and is now choice. And I just felt like those terms were a better fit. The points do still contain the same story beat, but the terms fallout and choice feel more specific and more active. Like we're still reacting, but in a more active way. We want our protagonists to feel like they have agency and to not just be passively reacting to everything. Mostly. There are always exceptions, but readers generally like an active protagonist that drives the story along. You know, protag's got a protag and all that jazz. Now, I'm gonna go through this outline in chronological order because that's how I like to build it out. But for those of you who look at the 27 points and think that is too restrictive, you're doing too much outlining, try starting with these 5 points instead. In the first 5%, you have your introduction and your inciting incident. At your 25% mark, you have a plot twist and the promise of the premise. At 50%, you have, of course, your midpoint. At 75%, you have another plot twist that pushes you into the darkest moment, the dark night of the soul. And at that last 5% of the story, you have your climax and resolution. Regardless of what story structure you use, whether you use 3-act with even divisions, like my 27-chapter method, or the version of 3-act structure that's divided by 25%, 50%, 25%, or 4-act structure, or 5-act structure, act divisions are arbitrary to a certain degree. Like, it's really just a structural choice. It's about pacing and flow and where your sequences end. But regardless of whatever act structure you're using, if you're even using one, you're gonna have these 5 plot points at approximately these places. And once you figure out these 5 plot points for your main story, you can build out around them. Or you can go in chronological order like what I'm gonna do now. So let's get to it. So chapter 1 is our introduction. We meet Charlie, our main character, and her life kinda sucks. And then she finds out that her estranged twin sister, who she hasn't spoken to in a year, is dead. And that, of course, is our inciting incident. Penny is dead, but she is somehow here as a ghost, haunting Charlie's tattoo. The fallout of this incident has Charlie rebelling against this call to action. She doesn't want anything to do with this. She is still mad at Penny for her betrayal a year ago, so she doesn't want to help. She tries to ditch Penny and find a psychic who can help her with her ghost problem. But of course, the only way to actually get rid of Penny is to help her complete her unfinished business so she can move on. Charlie reluctantly agrees to help. In chapter 5, Charlie takes action. Penny's unfinished business is this science project that she must complete in time for the showcase in 2 weeks. So Penny convinces Charlie to break into her elite science academy to get to her project. We'll have some fun, like, breaking and entering heist type shenanigans in this chapter. But of course, there's a consequence to this action, and Charlie is caught breaking into this lab. And now she must appeal to the people in charge, the headmaster, in order to take over Penny's spot in this course. To crank up the pressure a little bit, Charlie must first prove herself before she's allowed to be accepted into this program. There's some kind of test or interview that she must pass, and she does. She is accepted into the program. But then, plot twist, while checking out Penny's project and like assessing what needs to be done, the girls discover that Penny's death wasn't actually an accident. It was murder. In the original outline from 6 years ago, I actually had this "it was murder" reveal at the midpoint. And like, I could have tried to keep it there and like make that work, but I concluded that the murder reveal really does need to be here. Like, we need to get that murder plot started earlier than the midpoint. Like, the story really is about the sisters' relationship first and the unfinished business second. So the murder isn't like a huge element of the story. Like, I wouldn't classify this as a murder mystery. The murder mystery is very much a B plot. But at the end of Act 1 is traditionally where you introduce the B plot. So, the "it was murder" reveal is definitely our plot twist and push into Act 2. Also pushing us into Act 2 is meeting the other 5 students' peers in the lab. And one of them is most likely our killer. Next up, breaking into the new world. We get to explore this new location, the lab. We get to know what Penny's project is all about and who these other people in the course are. We also get to have some fun and games. This is where we get some fun, ghostly shenanigans and, you know, the girls investigating the murder and working on Penny's project. We're building some tension because the sisters are constantly arguing, like they still have beef. There's still a lot of tension between them from their estrangement. Then we have the old world juxtaposition chapter. This is another element that has changed because originally it was just about the sisters bickering and like rehashing their history. And we're still gonna have some of that here. But I was thinking about our timeline and like a realistic sequence of events, and Penny's funeral would happen at some point over the course of this story. So this is the perfect chapter for that. Charlie goes home for Penny's funeral, and it's kind of a reality check for both of the sisters. Like, they're both kind of grappling with the reality of Penny's death. And both sisters are a little emotionally stunted. So all these big feelings they're dealing with, yeah, they're just gonna fight with each other about it. They're gonna like lash out and have a big blowout fight, which builds us up to the midpoint where the killer goes after Charlie. There's an attempt on her life, and the girls learn the hard way that they have to work together if they want to figure this out and complete the project. And, you know, at least one of them is still going to be alive at the end of this, hopefully. So we have a bit of a reversal here. Like, the sisters make up, they hash out their issues and start to make amends and like really repair their relationship. So when we get back to the lab, things are different. The sisters are now working together and making real progress on both the project and the murder mystery. It's not easy progress, though. There are trials involved in this process, of course. They are freshly dedicated and determined to do the thing. They even go so far as to confront their main suspect at the time, but it wasn't them. it was someone else, and they're really narrowing down on the probable suspect now. The last night before the showcase, we have our calm before the storm. Just a quiet moment of the sisters bonding and kind of some preemptive mourning. The showcase is tomorrow, and after that, Penny is going to move on. So, it's kind of a heavy moment. And then the killer attacks again. Charlie is attacked and hurt, and Penny, who is incorporeal, can't help. This is the darkest moment. Charlie is left for dead. Penny is helpless. All hope is lost. Except, no it isn't. Because Charlie and Penny find the power within themselves to make a comeback at the last minute. We get our shit together, and then we are racing to the finale. We gotta get to the showcase on time. We gotta call some reinforcements in. We call the detective who's investigating Penny's murder. We call some of our allies at the lab. Can you stall the showcase? We're on the way. And then everything is coming together and converging. Charlie and Penny have connected the dots, and they've really connected shit this time. Everything comes together. We confront the killer and have our final battle, our final showdown. And of course, we are victorious. Hooray for justice. At the climax of our story, we make it to the competition showcase just in time. We present our project and we win again. Another victory. But this victory is a little bittersweet, because it means the murder is solved and the project is complete and the sisters have repaired their relationship and all of Penny's unfinished business has been finished. So now it's time for our resolution, our final goodbyes, and Penny finds peace and moves on. Maybe. We'll just see about that. I have an alternate ending in mind, but we'll talk about that in a future video. And yeah, here is our revamped outline. It's a very basic outline. This is only like 500 words or so. It's just like a story skeleton that we're gonna hang everything else on. But we have these 27 basic story beats, and we have a general shape of the story this way. There's obviously a lot of specifics that this outline doesn't even touch. Like I said before, the relationship between the sisters is a huge part of the story, and we don't really dive deeply into it in this basic outline. This is just like action points, story beats. And as you will see in future videos in this series, it's pretty malleable. Like I can split some of these points into more than one chapter or combine several points into a single chapter. It really depends on how the story actually flows, which you can't get a good sense of from like this bird's eye view. But we have a roadmap now. We have broad strokes of a story, and now we just continue to narrow in on each point and flesh it out. And yeah, I think that is gonna do it for this video today. There's a lot of specifics and like decisions that I've made that aren't mentioned in this outline at all. If you remember at the end of that original outline video, I had all these questions like, what exactly is Penny's project? What exactly is this competition and the showcase and the program that Penny's a part of? What is the tattoo that the twins share that is somehow haunted? I know all of this stuff now. I've figured it all out. I've made decisions. And I can't wait to tell you all about it as we progress through this story and this project. A good amount has changed over the years. Not just structure-wise, like introducing the murder mystery sooner, but also things like the twins' personalities. They're pretty different now, and it changes a lot. Like, I am going to have to completely rewrite the chapter 1 that I zero drafted before, because our main character, Charlie, is very different now. And that original chapter just does not fit with her personality at all, which is where we're gonna pick up in the next episode. We're gonna redraft chapter 1. So tune in next time for that. Until then, Thank you so very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I will have another video up soon, so I will see you then. Bye!